Today's video I'm going to show you how to sew bands onto underwear featuring the Ellie and Mac Kids Cami pattern. So for this I am using cotton spandex for my main pieces, and for my band pieces I am using rib knit. Both of these knit fabrics are from Thunderbird Handcrafted. They are hand dyed. So for the supplies I am using today: a ruler, air erase pen, my scissors, and my rotary cutter. Let's go over the pieces you will need. So you will need one gusset cut on a fold, one back piece also cut on the fold, one front piece cut on the fold, one waistband on the fold, and two leg bands also cut on the fold. Using an air erase marker to mark my right side of the fabric. You can use chalk, a fabric marker, anything like that. So for this I have folded my rib knit fabric in half, placing the pattern pieces onto the fold. So for this you're going to cut two leg bands at 1.5 height by 6 wide. This is a size 4T, and then the waistband here is 3 inches high by 8.5 wide. Okay, now we're ready to assemble our pieces. So for this, you're gonna put your front piece, make sure it is right side up facing you. You're gonna put your bottom piece so that is wrong side of fabric is facing you. And then your gusset here is also gonna be the wrong side of the fabric facing you. So for this gusset piece, you're gonna kind of wanna stretch it to match the bottom of your pieces there. So I'm just taking, make sure you have the front, the bottom, and the gusset all together so you could sew that together. Now this is what it should look like. Just double check before you go ahead and sew, that way you know if it's correct or not. I am using my serger to sew up this pattern. If you do not have one, you can use your regular sewing machine. Make sure that you are using stretch stitch and also knit needles. Okay, so it should look like this. I know my piece does look a little wrinkly, so I'm going to go ahead and iron it. But you can take where the sides there, you can baste it onto the front if you want to secure it a little bit more. So here I am just going to clip down the sides of the gusset there. I'm going to baste it with my sewing machine, but for right now I'm just going to clip it in place. Then after this, I am going to flip up the top and bottom so that it's right sides together, and then I'm gonna sew along the sides. Okay, and now we are gonna sew right here on the short raw edge. And for this pattern, I have hacked it to add the bands. The original pattern calls for using elastic, and for me, I don't like using elastic. To me, it doesn't feel comfortable. So when I make underwear for my daughter, I just use the bands for her, and they seem to work good for her. I said before, this is a size 4T. The other sizes you will need to adjust if you're doing the leg bands and the waistband. Make sure to measure your pieces. Okay, now it's time to sew up our bands. So we have the 2 leg bands and the 1 waistband. You are going to sew on the short raw edge. And sometimes when I'm sewing bands or something like this, I leave them on the serger chain, so that way it's a little bit easier. Just make sure that you are clearing that next piece before starting to sew again so it doesn't get caught. Okay, now it's time to fold up our leg bands. I like to give them a good stretch. So for this, you're going to press it right there on the seam to fold it in half. Now you can use your iron, you can use, anything you want to give it a good crease. So we are going to fold it in half, and then we're going to find our center points, which basically is you're going to fold it all around, and you're going to match up the seam with the back part, and that would be a center point, and then your sides. So sometimes for me, I'll just clip it around first, and then I'll go back and find my point, so that way it kind of holds it in place so it doesn't like move around as much. Okay, it's time to find the center points for this piece. So right there where my 2 clips are in the center, that is a point. And then down there at the corner, I just kind of take my finger and kind of walk it to the edge to find the centers, and just keep giving it a good stretch. And I'm doing the same process with my waistband as well. And here I'm just taking the little snip out of the band with my scissors. You don't want to cut too deep, but just a little, so that way you can find your center point. Okay, now it's time to attach our bands. So for this, I do the same thing what I did to the bands. I find my center points. So for this, you're gonna take where those seams at the side and then that bottom part match up, and then you're just gonna walk it with your fingers to the side, and that's how you'll find your points, just like we did with the bands. And then you're also gonna do it to the top waistband part too. now it's time to add our band into the underwear. So for me, I like to place it where the seam of the band meets the seam of that side. You're gonna put your band inside of the underwear and you're gonna clip right there on the seam and then down at the gusset side right there on that. You're gonna clip that seam together, and then from here you're gonna find where you put your center points. You're gonna line that up and then clip around and then add as many clips as you want to secure it. And then I'm just gonna add the other band to the other side, doing the exact same way. Okay, now we're ready to sew up our band. So for me, I like to put my seam down and then my leg band facing up towards me. So for any bands, you're gonna need to stretch them. So for me, I usually just set it down on my machine first, kind of get my fabric situated. I take my finger and where my bands are, I'm gonna pull them towards me. Not like a heavy pull, but just enough to where the fabric and the ribs are together. Basically just pulling the band right around that circle with the fabric. So you're pulling at the band and then kind of getting the fabric all in one circle motion. So for me, using a serger for this pattern, I try and encase my serger tails around so that way they don't come unfrailed or anything like that. So for me right now during this, I'm just kind of checking to make sure everything is looking good, and then I'm going to take it over to my regular sewing machine and I'm just going to top stitch right around where my serger sewed previously, so that way it kind of catches it and that way there's no fraying later on. For top stitching, you can use your regular sewing machine, a twin needle, or a cover stitch. I do not have those machines. I only have my regular domestic sewing machine, so that's what I am using. For the serger tails, you can tie them in a knot and secure them that way. You could use like a loop turner, things like that. But for me, sometimes if I'm already going to use my sewing machine, then that's where I will put a secondary stitch right there on my seam or something like that to secure it. And I'm just adding the other band, the other leg band onto the underwear. And these steps, you can do them all together. Do 2 bands at once and then the waistband, or all 3 parts together. Sometimes for me, I like to take it slow. That way if I do mess up, I don't have to mess up the whole pattern. I can just go back to my last step to redo it. And this is what it should look like so far. So now we're gonna attach our waistband. And like I said before, don't worry, it's kind of wrinkly. I did iron it, but I think my iron was just heating up, so it didn't get hot enough. So after I had put my waistband on, I do go back and iron it. So here I'm just double checking that I did put my center points on for my waistband. Okay, and here's the waistband. Just like our leg bands, I give it a good stretch, and I put the big seam on the back to match with the back seam. And this is where you could place like a size tag or anything like that. Sometimes I do for underwear and sometimes I don't. But I'm just placing it inside of my fabric, matching up my center points, and then adding clips like I did with my bands. And then I'm just doing the exact same method I used for my leg bands, stretching with my finger, not a lot, but enough to give it the stretch that I'm needing. So for this, I'm just taking my finger, same thing with my leg bands, pulling it once I hit that center point, and then I move the fabric a little bit and then go to the next. Stretching the bands like this, ensure that you're gonna have a good fit. Sometimes if you don't stretch it enough, then it kind of looks wonky and uneven. So that's why you want to stretch it to fit the pattern pieces, to make sure it's all even all around. I talked about before with the serger tails, here I am putting it in a knot and then securing it that way. Like I said, you can tie off your serger tails a couple different ways, so that part isn't too hard. Just try different methods, see what works for you. And here I am just flipping the bands up, making sure everything looks even, and then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and do a top stitch over the waistband. And like I said, for top stitching, you can use your sewing machine, a twin needle, or cover stitch. And right now at this time, I do not have those. I only have my domestic one needle sewing machine right now. Here's the finished piece. I hope you enjoyed this video. I will link everything down in the description. Thank you for watching.